perfectly. What I really want to try to do here, let me see. Christina, are you on here?
Yeah, I'm on.
How do we, I don't see streaming to Facebook on here. I can record to the computer, record to the cloud. Am I missing? Okay, got it. We're recording. We're good. Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Um, Bell, definitely keep that question tucked at the front of your head there, because we're definitely going to hit on that, because that is a legitimate question and a legitimate issue that comes up, right? And so us as professionals, we need to know, like, there is a point of diminishing return, right? When it comes to time and timing the market. So, but anyways, yeah, let's definitely keep that question in mind here. Christina, I appreciate you putting this together here, and really pushing me to do another class, because this makes me sharpen my pencil as well. And I love doing these things for you guys. So welcome to Mastering the Market. Let's see how this goes. Like, I'm totally cool with making this somewhat of like a little mini series here, right? And so my time with you guys today, I wanted to keep this to about 30 minutes or so. I have 3 segments that I want to go over. I'm going to hit on like 10 minutes each one. We'll also have some questions as well. I love that we started this with some questions here too, because let's face it, guys, as busy and crazy as the market is, it's stressful out there. Like, it is definitely stressful, right? Like, if you're predominant buyer based, it's very it's very challenging to get buyers' houses right now, regardless of if they're cash, if they're not cash, if they have a house to sell, if they don't have a house to sell. Like, it is just wild times in the real estate market. So anything I could do to help you guys master and clarify and really help take your business to the next level. I've been in the business, I'm going on 18 years, almost 19 years at this point. I've seen, I feel like I've seen it all, right? I've seen the last market jump. I've seen the last market crash. I've lived through it all. I've thrived through it all. I've also been a professional coach for Jared James Enterprise, which is a real estate coaching company since 2014. So I'm going on 7 years here. It'll be 7 years in September as a professional paid coach. So, my insight, I like to say, is somewhat valuable. And again, any way that I can serve you guys here today, I'm more than happy to do so. So the first thing I have here is really being prepared, right? Like, number one I have is know the inventory. So knowing the inventory is really part of being prepared. Ultimately, it's ultimately, knowing the market that's going to give you the confidence to be able to speak to your clients, whatever the situation is, right? And this goes back to the question that was asked earlier, like, hey, do I renovate first and then put it on the market, or do I put it on the market? And so I always have a kind of like a standard thing I say to a seller, like, you don't want to put a nickel into it unless you're going to get a dime out of it. Right. So, like, you want to make sure that you're going to get your money back, because if you're just going to put a nickel into something and get a nickel back, it's not worth it. Right. It's not worth the timing, because you have to look at, let's say, where the market is, how long it's going to take you to do the work, how much the work is going to cost. In parentheses here, we are in like a shortage of everything on earth. Right. So throw that stuff into the mix, and you can kind of direct a seller in their best interest. Now, if there's like major renovations that have to be done and this house isn't saleable, different story. But it comes down to knowing the inventory. And the one thing that I do to know the inventory, no matter where I am, in what market or any county, any town, I run the hot sheets. Now, if you go in the MLS, I'm gonna do a quick, super quick screen share here. So let's see. You guys can see my screen here. I'm gonna take that as a yes. So when I log into my MLS, one of the first things I always do every single day, I go right up to here, I go to hot sheets today. I go to here, I click search, and I just see what's on the market. I do this, no lie, I probably do this about, I'm gonna say on average about, 25 to 30 times a day. And so what you can do, you go in here, right? Like, I have my counties checked, which I'm pretty well versed in, which I like to keep a pulse on. And then I go here and I check all the towns that I like to keep a pulse on. And I typically check all. Like, I want to see what's going on: residential, commercial, multifamily, business, land, and rentals here. And so what I do, I click this, I see what goes on. And this is pretty much real time what has come on since the last time I actually checked search. So this is great, again, to keep a pulse on what's going on in these towns. Obviously you see the attorney reviews here. You'll see the back on the markets here. You'll see the price changes as well. You'll see what's going under contract. And I really like to keep a pulse on this because this is really what's going on in the market today. So, you could see list price, sale price, what things sold for. Then you go down to here, like what's expiring. You can see what's withdrawn, what's coming soon for multifamily, and it really just puts this whole list down. And again, I look at this so many times a day, and it's just right through here, hot sheets, today's search. If you make this a habit, and again, I made this a habit, I'm going to say probably 15, 16 years ago, but if you make this a habit today, like what could this do for you and your knowledge in the market, and how can that empower you to help empower your clients? So again, going back to the question, like, hey, should I do this versus should I not do this? Will this get me more money? Keeping a pulse on this stuff will definitely help you with that. And this hot sheets thing, this is your friend as well. So like, let's say, look, we're realtors, we kind of work every day, right? But if we decide to take a day off, we can go here. You can change all this, by the way. You can change your standard, your today's, any of this stuff in here. But typically I'll go days back. Like when I went on vacation or, I was away for a specific period of time, I go down to here. This is all originally checked as in my hot sheets, right? And so let's say I want to say, what has come on the market in my areas between May 10th and let's say May 17th. We'll call May 18th today, right? Because I was away for a week, quote unquote, let's say, or, I was just checked out, whatever the case was. And now I just want to get a pulse on what's going on with the market. I can see all these listings that came on. Like there's a ton of stuff in Montville. Like when I look at this, the first thing that comes to my mind is, wow, there's a lot of stuff that came on in Montville in the last 10 days. There's only one in attorney review. That means the Montville market in my eyes is slowing down a little bit, right? And so when you start to see some of these patterns too, like you look at a lot of these in the last 10 days, there's not a lot in attorney review, where I would go back 10 days and I would see a ton of these things in attorney review. Makes you think a little bit. Ringwood, still a hot market. 5 properties on the market. 1, 2, 3 in attorney review. Totowa, out of 4 properties, 1 in attorney review, 25%. So then you start to think what is actually going on in the market. Like you look at Wayne, you take these numbers, 104 to 133. So that means what? 29 properties came on the market, and you got 1, 2 in attorney review in the last 10 days. I'm like, that might be a signal to something, right? And so again, it's knowing the inventory, knowing the hot sheets, and knowing some of these numbers, what's going on in the real world right now in real estate, right? Like another great thing too, like look at these price changes in the past 10 days. This is quite a lot than what we're kind of used to here, right? And so again, you start to see some patterns, but then you look at the under contracts, and the under contracts are rocking in the last 10 days. So again, it's just it's good to have a grasp on this stuff, and the hot sheets are a super way to stay dialed in to what's going on in these micro markets right at this exact moment. So I highly, 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 highly recommend you get into the habit of just looking at that stuff every day. On top of the fact that, hey, look, we may have a buyer, we may have a seller that we're trying to list, and now, the neighbor's house just came on. Now it's like, hey, let me call this person on Allen Drive and just let them know that this house just came on next to them for 50 grand more than we were talking about, and it's in attorney review already, or it just went under contract, right? So this data that we pay for through the MLS is worth its weight in gold to us. Because you have to remember, the consumer is armed with Zillow, the consumer is armed with Trulia, with Realtor.com, and as obsessed as they are, we also need to be within the immediate market, right? Like most people, they have their notifications going crazy on their phone all day. Like when it's like, all right, it's time to find a house, or we're looking for a house, or we want to sell our house. What's the one thing most people are doing 90% of the time? looking at houses on their phone, right? It's like with anything. You want to buy a car, next thing you know, you're looking at cars for 3 days straight. Like you're up at 12 o'clock at night in bed looking at cars. People are doing the same thing with houses. We have the data right here. So use it to your advantage. It's super helpful, right? We also have in our office, we have broker metrics. If you haven't heard of broker metrics, when we do our sales rally, when we get our numbers, when we compare the markets to what what we are doing, what other people are doing, and just the overall price ranges, average price points, days on the market, stuff like that. Broker metrics is an awesome tool. You could check market share, you could check business. It's kind of a leaderboard in a sense, right? Like you want to see where you stand, or you want to see where the office stands, you want to see where the market stands. You go to broker metrics, and that's literally it's a great leaderboard. So that is being prepared, right? Like being armed with the information, aka knowing the inventory. So to me, that all lumps into knowing the inventory here. Knowing what the comps are, knowing how to pull the comps. I could do an entire class just on that. Actually, I think I did do a class on that, one of the Ignite classes. By all means, you want to check that out as well. I believe we have that on our YouTube page. So really quick, also, when we look at these two, it's good to know the trends, right? Like we don't see the sales price on a lot of stuff until it actually closes, right? Unless it's our listing, or in case we get some kind of whispers of what's going on in the market here. So as much as I don't put a huge emphasis on sold comps at a listing appointment, because I always focus on like the market of the moment, like what's happening now, the actives to under contracts, the sold comps, just to know exactly what is going on and like what is actually selling over asking price is going to help you when it comes to appraisals. So I know that the appraisals came up in the sales rally today. Somebody said they had an issue with an appraiser. I believe it was kind of like a multiple instance with an appraiser. One of the most important things, let me keep this cap off. Like I said, one of the most important things to do when it comes to appraisals is to make sure you're meeting your appraisers at the appraisals. Super important. It has helped me. It has saved my butt so many times. And granted, they all have access to the same exact stuff that we do. When I print out the comps and I hand them to an appraiser, I just say, hey, I know you have access to the same stuff, but I figure I just take the time to help you out a little bit with some of these comps. Hand them to the guy. And they said, okay, thank you. I count on less than one hand on how many times they did not take them. So again, super important, and just knowing the areas, knowing the towns, knowing your market, that is going to help you avoid appraisal issues later on. Like you're going to know if you're going to have an appraisal issue before you even get to the appraisal, right? Just because you should know what's going on here already. So part one to really mastering the market, know the inventory, know your comps. I always look at it from a macro kind of zoomed out level and then a micro zoomed in level, right? So there's two parts to knowing that market. Second part, how to master the market. Actually, you know what? Does anybody have any questions on that first part, knowing the market? Anybody there? Bill, did I answer your question? Okay, got it. Yeah. For some of the latecomers, just Bill, because I think that's actually a very real issue, and I think that a lot of people encounter that. So just to kind of circle back to that first thing for the newcomers here. So Bella had asked a question. She wanted a listing appointment. These people want to do renovations before listing the property. And it always comes down to like, what's the return on investment? How long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? And where are we in the market cycle for this year, or for, the grander cycle, right? And if somebody says, hey, I want to sit there and do a kitchen, we know it's going to take 5, 6, 7 weeks. If somebody's saying they want to do a kitchen in, the beginning of June, that property's not going on until August, you're going to put yourself in a very dangerous position, because they're going to miss out on a more important time in the market. So it's not a one size fits all, but it is a very real thing to look at, and knowing the market, knowing where you are in your timing, and then knowing that return on the dollar that people are going to put in. Another line I like to use with that stuff too, you're going to put good money to bad, right? Like if someone is already at the peak of what they're going to get for a property, no matter how much more you put into it, you're taking good money and putting it into something that's not going to appreciate. That doesn't make sense either. So, I think a lot of it is going to come down to the particular client's needs and what their plan is, right? So if somebody's like, hey, I'm going to go move across country, I don't know what I'm buying yet. Well, you're better off with some of the money in your pocket and bringing it to your next place so that you have some more money to do whatever you need to do. So if I could suggest one tip, if there's one thing that actually brings a very good ROI, return on investment, it is painting. It's very inexpensive. It can completely change the look of a house, the look of a room, and you can get it done fairly quickly, fairly inexpensively in terms of labor. So if there's anything that a seller could do to make something look better, if there's ever a suggestion, painting is it, for sure. Cool. So I'm going to jump into number 2 here, how to master the market. You have to prospect for business, right? Like what good is knowing all this inventory, knowing the hot sheets, knowing the numbers, knowing all this stuff, and not having anybody to tell it to, right? Or not having anyone ask you about it. So this has been, kind of beaten so many times, right? Like, how do we prospect for business? How do we get our phone to ring? And at my core, I can tell you that one of my favorite things that I tell myself, if my phone is not ringing, I need to get on the phone and make other people's phones ring, right? And that is just, it's an energy, it's a flow, like it's a give to get. So if my phone is not ringing, I need to make other people's phones ring. So what does that mean? That means I have to call other people, right? Or text other people or reach out to other people. So, for sale by owners, expireds, circle prospecting, I think we all know that, right? It's easy to know, it's hard to do. So until you have a schedule, and again, just like pulling these hot sheets and going over what's going on in the market, when you make this a habit, it's life changing. That's how you change your business. Like that is how you increase your business. We are, I actually, this is something that Eric always says, Eric Melnikoff, our productivity coach. We're not in the business of selling real estate. We're in the business of prospecting, and that is so true, because at the end of the day, if we don't have anybody to sell houses to or anybody to sell houses for, we're not selling houses, right? And so when we shift our thinking to selling houses versus finding people to help sell their house, it is a totally different mindset. Ask past clients, people you come in contact with, ask them for referrals, right? And if you're not a phone person, not everybody does the whole phone thing, right? But you need to be on social media. You need to let people know what you do and that you're available. And a huge thing that's always worked for me, I'm going to see if I could find this. I'll be honest, I haven't sent one of these out. I'm going to say probably in about a year and a half. Let's see here. Let's see if I can screen share again here. We'll go back to here. Do you guys see my Finder with these files here?
No, still the MLS.
Got it. So let's jump on here. All right, so now we got desktop too. So we got neighborhood letter. Okay, so let's see if I can pull this up super quick. No thanks. See if I can pull this up without having to update my entire computer. All right, so this is a letter that I have used that I've been super successful with. Are you guys able to see this letter? Somebody give me a thumbs up.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, cool. Awesome. So this is something that I send out. This is obviously back when I was at a different company here. So listen to this letter as I read it out loud. Nothing fancy about it. No crazy letterhead, right? Like us as realtors, and I used to have the same syndrome, right? So every time I'd send something out, I'd put my picture on it, I put my name on it, my face on it, my phone number, like my kid's name, my social security number, a DNA sample, like anything I could possibly put on an envelope, I'd put it on there. However, it looks way too much like an advertisement. So with these letters, what I've learned to do is just keep it super simple, super personal, super personable. And so the letter just goes something like this: hi, exclamation point. I'm not sure that we have ever met in person before, but I wanted to make you aware that your neighbor's house at 3 Stonehill Road just went up for sale for $789,000. I tell them the price, right? Because if I don't tell them the price, they're going somewhere else to look at the price. So I'm already giving them the price. More importantly, though, this may have changed the value of your home. What do you think they heard or said to themselves when they saw this? Their price went where? Up or up? Up. All right. The last thing I would ever want to do is bother you with wordless information, but I'm also aware when a house goes up for sale in a neighborhood, usually others want to know what the value of their property is as well. If you're one of these people and would like to know how your value has changed and doesn't want to have to pay to find out or waste your time with inaccurate property value estimates, please feel free to contact me at your earliest convenience. I would love the opportunity to serve you without you having to feel any obligation in return. You can call me at blah, 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 whatever. And so I can tell you these letters, although I haven't used them in a while, they work. I can pinpoint at least four listings in a 2.5 year span of using this letter that have produced results. And I know Karen's on here, so I'm going to, full disclosure, I'm not a broker by any means. And so I don't know the actual broker regulations, but this doesn't need to be your listing. This doesn't need to be our office's listing. You're just calling somebody and letting them know what is going on in their neighborhood, right? You're positioning yourself as a neighborhood expert. This is a form of prospecting. The only thing, and I could send this out. If you guys want me to send this out, just drop your email in the chat and I can shoot you over a sample of this after the class. Maybe we get crazy and have Christina do it for me, but by all means. So it's a great letter. It's a powerful letter. It's a form of prospecting. The only thing I do not like about the mailouts is that you have to pay. Like there's a lot more to pay. Like if I wanted to send this out to, let's say 200 people, it's going to cost me $100. It's going to cost me $100. I have to, print it. I'm going to have to fold it. I'm going to have to lick envelopes. There's like a whole bunch of different things that have to go on. However, I'm pretty busy, right? I have some staff help here as well. But if you're not crazy busy, I would be sending out 100 to 200 to 500, whatever the number you think may actually help you get one listing, double that per week. Because that's what it takes. And the reason why I say, how many do you think this will take to get one listing, or at least one listing appointment? I should have said one listing appointment, because you need multiple listing appointments to get one listing, because we don't have 100% hit ratio on everything. We don't bat 1,000 every time we get up, right? I'll be the first to admit, I used to actually take pride in my hitting average, my batting average, right? I'd be like, I'm getting 3 out of 4 listings I go on, right? It's great when you can say that you have such a great average. However, that means you're probably not going on as many appointments as you should be, right? Now my average is super low, but I'm still in like Hall of Famer territory in terms of Major League Baseball, because I'm going on more appointments. I'm getting more at-bats, right? And that's what we want. We want the at-bats. I'm sorry for the baseball analogy here. My son's playing baseball, and that's what's on my mind. So those letters are gold. And you can also do that on the reverse end as well. You could do that on the sales side, right? You look through your sold comps. Now you go through, so let's see, jump on a desktop 2 here. So we have that letter, right? And now you're like, oh, so what came on? And this is here. We're gonna go back to the hot sheets, right? So like, what came on in an awesome neighborhood that I know of that will generate like a ton of business because it's in such a hot neighborhood. You're like, 60 Furman, this is great. This is a great neighborhood, and so then you take this the knowledge that you learn from your hot sheets and you apply it to that letter. And now you're sending out 100 letters to Furman Drive and Brighton and all these other streets that are over there. Next thing you know, somebody calls you up and says, hey, I got your letter, right? And the reason why I like letters over a postcard, postcards are great, expect them to get thrown out. And that's my biggest thing, right? Like if I'm going to spend all this money on a postcard, I am already writing it off that somebody's going to be taking my postcard, opening it up over their garbage, and it's going out, right? I get them all the time. I look at them, I take a picture. I'm like, look at this realtor, garbage. And so on a letter, it's a little bit more personal. Somebody has to read that letter to know why it was sent to them. Postcard, you can see it's flashy. It's got a million different things on it, right? QR codes. Nobody's scanning that thing anyway. Like nobody wants a virus on their phone. When you get a letter, you're like, who's this person sending me a letter, right? Totally different experience on the consumer end, right? So again, hopefully that can be helpful to you guys. One more thing I have here as well, which, you know, my wife taught me this years ago. The fortune is in the follow-up. Because what good is having a great conversation with somebody and never having a conversation with them again? The hard part of our business, right, is because we're always looking for new. We want, like, you know, the next for sale by owner, the next expire, the next, the next whatever, the next offer, the next listing appointment. We're always looking for like the next thing. We need to schedule the time to go back and actually follow up and cultivate and nurture the people that we have within us already, right? Like there's tons of there's so many of us walking around with tons of business in our own database that we haven't talked to. We just haven't like crystallized their thinking, right? Because we had a conversation with them 4 months ago or 3 months ago that they were interested in selling their house. We might even went on a listing appointment and give the best listing presentation ever, and we stopped following up with them, right? And then 2 months later, we see it come on with some other realtor that may have called them once, and you're like, I know that agent. They're nowhere near as great as I am or can be, whatever. And next thing you know, it's like, this business stinks. I can't get listings and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, it's very, and this will segue right into my next segment here. It's very mindset driven, right? And so following up with people, actually having systematic follow-up, like if you said every single day, Monday through Friday, 11:30 to 12:30, I'm following up with everybody. You can never follow up with someone too much. I'm a fan of buy or die, right? Like you're either going to buy from me or you're going to die, or I'm going to die, or somebody's going to die. So, and that's what sellers as well. And it's not they're going to so much buy something, right? They're going to buy into me. That's what they're buying. They're buying into Shawn and Shawn's marketing. So, adapt that buy or die, right? And so when you get in front of somebody or you talk to somebody and that's a great conversation, don't just write it off as a great conversation. Write it off as in, that was a great conversation that needs to be continued. When can I continue it? And then when you go and put it in your calendar, i.e. your phone, your database, or whatever else that you want to put it in, right? If somebody's like, hey, I'm going to sell my house in 6 months. Whatever time comes in, I divide that by 2, right? I split it in half. So if somebody says, hey, I'm looking to sell in 6 months, great. I'll call you in 6 months, but I call them in 3, right? You might even get crazy if it's way too far out. You call them even before that. You could even divide it by 3, whatever the number works for you. I find dividing it in half works for me. But you have to follow up. The fortune is in the follow-up, right? It's not in the first conversation. It is definitely not in the first conversation. Every single one of us walked into one listing one time and got the listing. We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. So you need to go on listing appointments to get a listing, right? And if you don't get a listing on a listing appointment, you must continue to follow up with those people. It's the only way you're going to get listings. So, this, anybody have any questions on that? Anybody have any questions on the letter or anything around prospecting here for you? We're going to do a Q&A session at the end too. So if you guys want to hang on to your questions till after this, I'm cool with that as well. So third part in how to master the market, which I believe truly deep down inside my gut and in my heart is the most important part of all this stuff, is mindset. In order to master the market, you have to have the right mindset. Right. And so when I look at mindset, I used to believe that mindset was 80% of this business, 20%, mechanics and systems and processes. I would say over the last 2 years, that changed to like 90-10, right? It's 90% mindset, 10% mechanics, all that stuff. And I would say over the last year, the last 12 months, COVID, call it 14, 15 months, that has definitely shifted in my brain. It is 95% mindset, maybe even 98% mindset now, and 95% mindset, 5% mechanics, right? Because if you don't have the right mindset going into this stuff, mechanics don't matter because you're not going to have any clients. Processes aren't going to matter because you're not going to have any clients, right? You have to have that stuff dialed in. You need your systems and your processes dialed in, right? Because once you have the clients, like you need to have this stuff all figured out. But the key is client acquisition, because without client acquisition, there's no homes to sell, right? So the mindset gets you that. The mindset of, I went on 4 listing appointments and I got 0. The mindset keeps you going on to your 5th, right? When you get that 1, and then 1 of those 4 winds up signing, and then 2 of those 4 wind up signing. And the next thing you know, you're creating momentum, right? And this business is hugely favoring people that gain momentum, without a doubt. Anybody else ever notice, like, you could be flatlined for like 2-3 weeks, not have a deal. All of a sudden you get 1 deal. Next thing you know, somebody calls you up, they want to list a house. Next thing you know, that listing sells. Next thing you know, you got 8 deals under contract. That's just the way it goes, right? And so how do you keep that going? You keep that same mindset when you had no deals and you did whatever you had to do to get that 1 deal that turned into 8, right? So one of the questions that I put around mindset in terms of real estate, how do you perceive the market, right? And so how do you perceive the market? And the reason I ask that is because your perception of the market is going to 100% dictate the way you talk about it. It is 100% going to direct people on how to respond to you and how you think about the market. And so how do you talk to others about it? What are the conversations you're having with buyers? What are the conversations you're having with sellers, right? And there's always it's the best way to say this. So I operate from a principle of there is no right, there is no wrong, right? If it's working for you, keep doing it, do it more, do it better, do it on a higher level. If it is not working for you, change it, do something else that's going to work for you, right? Like if you don't have what you want, it's one of those 2 things. You're either pushing away or pulling to get some more. And so when you're talking to a buyer or you're talking to a seller, let's take a buyer, for example. So you're talking to a buyer wants to buy a house and they're like, hey, I'm scared because the market's at an all-time high, right? The market was also at an all-time high a year ago. And that same person, had you bought a year ago, you would have probably saved yourself. Let's say you're buying a $500,000 house in 2020 before the pandemic. You would have probably saved yourself $100,000 by buying a year ago. Now you're buying now, and you're a little scared. What if the market continues to climb? What does that cost you then? Right? And so our job is to crystallize people's thinking. And if somebody comes to you and wants to buy a house, you crystallize that thinking, right? And the one thing I don't like to do is stand in the way of what other people want to do. Someone wants to buy a house, they're going to buy a house, right? Prices are crazy now, no doubt. I think most people know that. I think we all talk about that, right? Prices are nuts. However, if somebody needs to buy a house right now, they're going to buy a house. And that's okay, right? Sometimes we like to stand in the way. We like to try to, like, quote unquote, like, be the hero, right? Our job is to crystallize our clients' thinking, and that's it. Same thing with a seller. Well, should I sell now? The market's so hot. I'm trying to get my mom to sell her house. I've been trying to get my mom to sell her house for the past year. Thank God she didn't last year, right? She would make it $100,000 more this year. She's still not selling it this year, right? And so it's always, we can't predict the future. We don't have the crystal ball. We can only play with what is going on in the market at the moment and what our clients want. Right? Like we don't determine the market. We don't dictate the market. However, our mindset around it will 100% dictate the amount of energy that we're putting out to our clients that comes into our clients, right? Like, are our clients going to trust us with whatever we say? We're not out to like swindle people, right? Like, we're in this business, I always say, for the long term, right? My real estate license is worth way more than any one commission to screw around with somebody's life. And so acting in a very, integrity driven type manner, you need to crystallize the people's thinking in front of you. And it's all perspective, right? Like, you see it from their perspective too. Everybody's situation is different, right? Like, a buyer who may have 3 kids is going to be different than the buyer who is pregnant on their first and they're due in 2 months, right? Like, one is going to have more of a motivation to buy something that, that, again, we just can't stand in the way of, right? And I do see this happen all the time as well, where we do try to step in and almost be that barrier, because we're like, oh, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Always follow the rules, number 1. Always act in integrity, number 2. And always act in your client's best interest, because if your client wants to buy a house, they're going to buy a house, right? If they're not going to buy a house, they're not going to buy a house. There's no like talking people into one way or another. And that all comes down to mindset, right? It's how you perceive the market. It's how you perceive yourself. And that's even going back to prospecting too. Prospecting, right? If you're like, I just called this guy on Monday and today's Wednesday, I shouldn't call him again because I don't want to bother him. That's a mindset thing. Like, if you're calling people thinking you're bothering them, you're going to be bothering them. If you're calling up and be like, I need to follow up this guy because he's going to sell his house, and if it's not me, he's going to get some other person that's not going to service them as good as I do. Like, that's the mindset, right? Like, you need to believe deep down inside your core that you are the best option for these people. If not, somebody else is going to. So those are my 3 things. How to master the market. You need to know the inventory / be prepared. Prospect for business. Obviously, if we're prepared for nobody, we're not selling any houses, right? And also mindset. You can control your mindset. Morning routines. Morning routines are great. If you could develop a morning routine, I'm up 4:58 is my time typically. Sometimes in the last probably month or so, I've been valuing my sleep a little bit more than my gym time in the morning. So just wake up, and like, my first thing, I put myself like, what are 5 things I'm grateful for right now before my feet even hit the floor? It's automatic. As soon as I wake up, automatic. That's the first thing I think of. Top 5 things. And then, you dominate your day from there. Again, I'm not perfect by any means, but these are things that work for me, and I'm glad to pass them along to you guys as well. I would love to open it up for like a ask me anything here for the next 15 minutes. If anybody has anything, ask me anything you want. Real estate related, not real estate related, car related, crypto related, anything. You guys, the floor is yours. Anybody got anything? If not, let's all go out and enjoy this beautiful day. I hear somebody off mute.
I'm just curious. I know you're a crypto guy, so like, I'm not a believer at the moment, but do you actually, like, do you believe that it's going to be a currency? Like, do you think that it's going to, or do you think it's just going to be an asset?
Both. I think it all depends. I think it already is a currency. If I wanted to, I could buy something on PayPal with Bitcoin if I wanted. I could buy something with Litecoin. So technically, I could use my crypto as a currency. I think Bitcoin's going to be a store of value. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be traded. Like, I'm not going to go to the store or buy a pack of gum with Bitcoin. I don't. I think there's going to be something that is going to be like that. I think the United States government is way behind on the technology, and they're going to come out with some kind of digital currency to represent the dollar. And I think that's actually going to make the crypto space even crazier, because now, you're talking about tracking and all this other stuff of what people spend money on. It's going to be centralized, whereas cryptocurrency is decentralized. So yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes, but who knows? I think we're still 5 years off from that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Shawn, thank you so much for your thoughts today.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. Anybody else? Anything? You can ask me anything, guys. Ask me what I ate for breakfast. All right,
What
I'm
you eat for
good.
breakfast?
What?
What you eat for breakfast?
Same thing I eat every day. I eat, let me see, I eat 2 whole eggs, egg whites, brown rice with Frank's Red Hot sauce every single day. So that's my breakfast. Amazing.
Sounds good.
Belle, I got to tell you, those mathematical equations are quite intimidating.
Oh, I'm a math teacher and I was teaching right.
I know you
class.
are. I had to think about it for a second though when I saw it.
I was reviewing some calculus with some of my students.
That's great. That is awesome.
You should do every one of your appointments with that behind you.
I have.
Awesome.
Not this, but something similar.
Your clients will get intimidated by you then. They'll just say,
I was trying to read it before. I'm like, I don't know. That's way beyond my that's beyond my pay grade. I can't do math. I know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Cool. All right, guys. I appreciate you listening to me, and by all means, let me see. Christina, do we have? Can we get these emails in the chat?
Yeah. Let me see if I can save the chat.
Oh yeah, we could. Let me see.
Okay. Yep. So I saved all the emails.
Okay. Cool. If you could here, you know what? I'll save the chat as well, and then I could just shoot this out.
Perfect.
Let me see. Save chat. Every time I try to do this, for some reason, I don't know where it goes. Christina, if you got it, just shoot it over to me.
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.